Good day, Scratch fans. This is Bill Stannard from EngiLearning at the St. Louis Science Center with another of our EngiLearning sessions, this one titled Intro to the Scratch GUI, Part 2. So let's get going. You've logged into Scratch, you've created an account, and now you see the scene. I've named this one Intro to the Scratch GUI, and you can change it from untitled by clicking up here where it says I've typed in Intro to the Scratch GUI. Let's go through, first of all, what a GUI is. It's a graphical user's interface, and it's where you're going to do your work to produce your Scratch game. First of all, let's start on the left. On the left, we have all of the categories of the code that we're going to write. Next to that, we have the blocks of code. Going a little bit farther to the right, we have the area where we write the scripts. All the way to the right, we have the stage, where in this case we see our Scratch cat, whose name, by the way, is Scratch. And down here, we have what's known as the sprite pane. Our cat friend here, Scratch, and if I click and drag, I can move Scratch around, is actually a sprite. And you'll see it spelled out down here, S-P-R-I-T-E. And sprites do all of the hard work in the sprite world, and we write code to animate them. So let's go and look at some of the code. Our cat, Scratch, right here, we can move by dragging a move block in to the coding area, the scripts area, and if we click on that code, our cat will do what it says, which is to move 10 steps. Our cat is facing right, so Scratch will move 10 steps to the right. If we wanted him to move farther, we would have to put him inside of a loop that would repeat, and he would keep moving to the right. If we wanted him to move to the left, we would just click in here and change the number from 10 to a -10. And every time we click this, he would move backwards. So plus and minus in the numbers moves the sprite either to the right or to the left. The other things we can do is we can turn our sprite. We can go to a random position anywhere on the stage. We can go to a very specific position. In this case, the position where Scratch is right now is on the X coordinates is a 7, and on the Y coordinates is a -17. If I were to move Scratch up a little bit, you'll see that his coordinates over here change to 12 on the X scale and 56 on the Y scale. Okay, so here, let's take a look at the group of code blocks called looks. We can have our friend the cat say hello. So if we click on this, he says hello. And after 2 seconds, it disappears. And we can even have him think. So now we will move him backwards. He'll say hello, and then he'll think. And you can see the difference between the speaking and the thinking. We can switch his costume. If I move this out here and click on it, he has a second costume. Okay, I have 2 costumes he can wear, costume 1 and costume 2. Let's take a look quickly at those costumes. They're here on the costume tab, and in the case of Scratch the cat, it's a very simple costume. We have costume 1, where he's walking forward, and costume 2, where he's finished that step and he's doing a second step. So if we go back and forth between these two, we can see that we can almost animate him. So let's go back to the code here and let's bring out a block that says next costume. I'm going to drag the block here, and I'm going to get rid of this block by pushing it over to the left. All right. So now if I click on next costume, you can see that he jumps back and forth between the two costumes. Let's go over and take a look at sound. We have all sorts of great things in sound. One of them is to play a sound. So if we just click on play, we get a cat sound. Okay? You can bring sound effects in, you can change the pitch of sounds, you can have a lot, you can even record your own sounds, which we'll get to later. Let's look at the code under events. The main one that you'll use here is when the green flag is clicked, and that's this green flag up here. So let's move this code over and connect it to the green flag, and I'll get rid of the rest of my code here. And when I click on the green flag here, Scratch takes a step backwards, says hello, and then thinks, Okay, so there's the green flag. Now I can do the same thing when I click on the space bar. If I put this down here, and I click the space bar on my computer, our friend goes backwards, says hello, and it can be any key that I want to pick. Doesn't have to be a space bar. There are lots of controls. We'll go over them when we get into our coding. Here's another one. These are controls. The most common control is the repeat control. If I want our friend to move 10 steps backwards, say hello, and then think for 2 seconds, I can repeat this over and over again. If I click on this block, there he goes, he says hello, thinks, moves backwards, says hello, thinks, and he'll just keep doing that until I turn this off. So I'm going to take this out now because I don't want him to keep walking backwards. He'll end up running into a wall. I can sense things. I can sense when I'm touching a wall, when I'm touching an edge, when I'm touching one of the other sprites. Okay, and I can use that and I can ask a question. I can say, if I'm touching a wall, I want to do something. We'll show you how these sensing pieces of code work. We can even say if you're touching a certain color. In sensing, we also can ask questions. It doesn't have to be what's your name. It can be how old are you. It can ask you which one of the trophies you want to capture to make points. We can also ask which key was pressed. Has the mouse been clicked? What is my position of the mouse on XY coordinates? Okay, operators, you'll recognize these from math class. I can use operators to pick random numbers. I can use operators to figure out if something is larger than something else or smaller than something else. Again, these are all bits of code that I can use when animating Scratch. I can also create variables. What's a variable? A variable is a container that keeps certain information. I can make a variable if I'm building a game, and I can call it score. And you'll see it pops up right here. So I can keep track of a score. I can also change the score by putting it here. So if I click on my variable and select score, every time I click this, the score will go up by 1. Okay? and my blocks. My blocks are, we'll get to them later in computer programming, they're called functions or methods, and they are things that I can invent myself. If I want to put Scratch through a bunch of moves and call it a dance, I can create a block and name it dance. And every time I click on that block, I can have Scratch actually dance. Okay? So now when I click on the block dance, he moves backwards, says hello, and then thinks, So I can use dance throughout my program, and I don't have to use all of this code. I can just use dance. If I want dance to work over here, all I have to do is click on it, and he does his thing. So that's a brief introduction to the GUI. We'll start using it in our next lesson coming up, which is going to be our Scratch lesson number 1, in which we build a neat game where we drop numbers from the sky and try to catch them in a bowl. Well, thank you again. This is Bill Stannard from Yes, EngiLearning at the St. Louis Science Center with another of our EngiLearning sessions. This one was Intro to the Scratch GUI, Part 2.